The ITU World Cup Series moves back across the globe for a series of 3 races in Europe. Round 5 brings us to Sweden. Over 160 of the world's best triathletes have gathered in Stockholm, the strongest lineup since last year's World Championships in Cleveland, USA. As the race for the 2000 Olympics continues, over 30 countries are represented, proving that the sport of triathlon is growing into a truly international sport of the future. This is the second time the ITU Tour has come to Europe this season, and this time the city of Stockholm plays host. As a bid city for the 2004 Olympics, the capital of Sweden provides the perfect setting for a sport that has newly acquired Olympic status, and all the signs suggest that today's race will provide a true World Championship form guide. The entire course centres around the City Hall, used once yearly for the Nobel Peace Prize celebrations. Today in Stockholm, the top athletes start their race with a 2-lap, 750-metre swim in the waters fronting the famous landmark. The transition area takes the athletes through the central courtyard and out onto a 5-loop, 8-kilometre tour of the city. The run is a 5-loop 2K course, which takes the athletes past the Swedish Royal Palace. The men's field is the strongest assembled this year on the ITU circuit. 3 times world champion Simon Lessing is here, and reports suggest that he is in the best shape ever. Four times ITU World Cup champion Brad Bevan won the last round in the heat of Gamagori. ITU Tour leader Chris McCormack, who has not missed a race so far on the ITU circuit, is also here to prove that top position is no one-hit wonder. Hamish Carter, 2 podiums from 3 starts, searching for his first victory. And a whole host of top European triathletes, including Dimitri Garg and Philippe Fattori. A truly international women's field includes Emma Carney, who has been beaten this year, but still comes to this race clear favourite. Rena Hill has not had the best of seasons so far, but has been training with the Australian team and is feeling confident about this race. Canadian Carol Montgomery has not finished a race this season due to illness, but when on form is a serious contender for podium positions. American Gail Lawrence has had a slow start to the season, but has been training at the American Olympic Centre and is keen to do well here. Christina Haak is ranked 3rd in the world and is the top European. Hungarian Erika Molnar, who came 3rd in Monte Carlo, is hoping for more glory on the world circuit. Magali Messmer from Switzerland is also a new face to watch out for. The World Cup rankings after 4 events still see Emma Carney dominating on 1,900 points. Niwata for Japan is 2nd, Hock 3rd, Andronicus 4th and Rena Hill 5th. The men's standings see Chris McCormack with top position, followed by Miles Stewart, his fellow Aussie, Dimitri Garg, Carter and Jamie Hunt in 5th position. We're just a few moments away from the start of this 5th round on the ITU World Cup Tour. There you see the key colours to watch out for on the swim caps, in particular the fluo green of Emma Carney, who is once again looking very confident to claim another victory. As always, joining myself, Nick Fellows, in the commentary box, former world number 3 from the sport of triathlon, Catherine Davis. And Catherine, they're off to a pontoon-type start, but this is an event that a lot of the athletes would enjoy. Stockholm, not only a beautiful city, but very pleasant conditions today as well.
That's true. It's not as hot as other places might be, and I think this is very favourable for the Olympic bid. I think the temperatures are in the low 20s, which is quite good for an endurance race like triathlon. And another thing to mention is the water is so clean you can actually drink it here. That is one of the problems in some of the races, because you definitely don't want to swallow any of the water, but they have really good environmental conditions here today.
Well, not to take anything away from any of the other host cities, but there have been one or two complaints from the athletes, particularly on the swim course. Let's take a look at where they'll be swimming here in Stockholm. 2 laps of 750 metres, staying in the water, not getting out for a beach start, and not as many steps to climb as we saw in the last race. Well, it's a familiar name for those of you who followed the World Cup Tour a year ago. Ute Muckel of Germany is back, a renowned swimmer, very, very strong, and we've seen her take it alone many times before now, Catherine.
But she is followed closely by a young Australian, Loretta Harrop, who's also swum nationally for her country. You can see her right on Ute's feet there. She's wearing a black and white suit. It is interesting to note that these top-level swimmers are getting into the sport of triathlon. They're getting very strong on the bike. And when we get some of these swimmers who turn out to be fine runners, then we're going to have a true world contender to match the abilities of Emma Carney.
Well, the German leads, and the German who had one or two good results on the tour last year. This is her first appearance on the ITU circuit for 1997. Cast your memories back to 96, Ishigaki Gamagori a year ago, and Ute Muckel was fourth. But it's the run section that often lets her down, but she does have the ability to really blaze the trail in the swim section. And there you can just about see on the left of your screens that fluo green cap of Emma Carney. Carney, who finds herself in familiar territory. Many of the World Cup competitions so far this season, she's found herself down in the swim.
In training, I've actually been working on my swim a bit. I think I made the mistake of backing off my swimming again, so I've been working on that again. And we've got some really good swimmers here from Australia, and I think it's going to be a good swim for me this time.
And it seems to be going to plan for Rena Hill, who's right up there with the best of the swimmers. We're still in the first lap of 2 750-metre loops, but the lead has changed. The German has dropped back into runner-up position, and the young Australian swimmer, perhaps the one that Rena Hill was referring to in the interview there, Loretta Harrop, has now taken up top position. She's just 21 years of age, a former national junior swim champion. Now, to be a swim champion in Australia, Catherine, is no mean feat.
That's right. There's so many people in triathlon from Australia who come from a swimming background. And what they do now in Australia is they start them really young training in the swimming and the biking. When they're 6 years old, they're out there in the pool, they're running around the track. So you do get these athletes coming up in triathlon who've got a really good background, good 10 years of swimming and running. And I think that's why they're dominating the scene so much these days.
An amazing shot of these three swimmers blazing the trail, stroke for stroke, so close to each other. But that's Loretta Harrop, who just has the edge over fellow Aussie Melanie Mitchell, and Ute Muckel keeping the European hopes alive, and particularly those of Germany. It's looking a very fast swim time so far, and we're already told that Emma Carney finds herself over a minute down in the fluo green cap. Keep your eyes peeled for the pre-race favourite, who seems to be struggling already. Well, a good shot there in the red cap is Christina Hoch for France. She's had some pretty consistent results so far on the tour this season. She was 7th in the opener in Ishigaki. Her best result came in round 2 in Auckland, where she was placed 5th. And you feel it's only a matter of time before this talented French triathlete climbs onto the podium on the tour this year. But you can see Ute Muckel and Loretta Harrop pushing ahead. Melanie Mitchell has just dropped behind. They're coming round the buoy for the first lap at around about 10:10, which is a good time, but a good time is expected, Catherine. The waters are very calm, and as we said earlier, the temperature's almost perfect for triathlon.
And they did have a very wide start. There was much more room at the beginning, so they were able to get clear water right away. But you notice that they tend to bunch up quite quickly. Now, that is to take advantage of the drafting. If you're working at the front, then you do have to push a little bit harder, and it is an advantage to sit on somebody's feet. You do get pulled along a little bit, so it's easier for the drafters.
We focus on the colour cap system of the ranked athletes. Already gone by in the red is Christina Hoch, 18 seconds behind the leaders. She's ranked 3 in the world. And there in the white cap, now on your screens, the Australian Nikki Andronicus. She's ranked 4th. She's 28 seconds. Now we're looking for Emma Carney, the fluo green cap. She seems to be a little further down the pace than she has in previous World Cup competitions. And there is Carney, some 48 seconds off the leaders, already leaving herself a lot of work to do. Australian Loretta Harrop, a relatively new face on the ITU circuit, took the lead in the second lap and began to pull slightly ahead. After poor swims in her last 2 races, Rena Hill would be happy coming out of the water in second position. Coming to the end now of this women's 1.5 kilometre swim, and Loretta Harrop, the 21-year-old Australian, has had a fine swim. She's seen off Ute Muckel of Germany, a renowned swimmer on the tour last year. It looks to be Rena Hill in second position just behind her, but this is a fine performance. Former junior swim champion. Does she have the skills on the bike? At 21 years of age, Catherine, she certainly has a great future ahead of her.
She does indeed. She's one of the squad that is trained by Brett Sutton, the Australian national coach, and he really has his athletes out there training, putting in the long miles now. I think we'll see a good bike from her. She's renowned for really keeping up on the bike, but I think she has to work on her run. We'll see how she does in the run, but she definitely has the potential to be one of the top triathletes in the world.
Well, a very good time as well, 20.49 minutes for the Australian. Now here comes some of the ranked triathletes. Around about 53 seconds behind it will be for Christina Hock, who's immediately followed by Natasha Hilgerholt. Already you can see there Loretta Harrop making her exit from the transition area. And we're still waiting to see Emma Carney. Not allowed to get on the bike till right out of that position. Hock now. A quick transition time is essential here, but we're still waiting for Carney. We're still waiting for a lot of the big favourites to come out of the water. Nikki Andronicus is there, world rank number 4 going into this competition, and already Harrop is pushing, driving away. The question is, does this young Australian have the speed on the bike? Does she have the confidence to go it alone? As we know, the drafting is so important. Here comes Emma Carney. Now we watch the clock very closely because this is the slowest swim we've seen from the Australian tour leader for some time. She's some 1 minute, 52 seconds down. Possibly, Catherine, is it too much for the great Emma Carney to make up this time?
I think that's what's been happening to Emma Carney in the last, well, at least in Monte Carlo, because she was a good 30 seconds behind Michaela Jones, and it just is, she has to expend so much more energy to catch up to that lead pack on the bike. I think that's really to her disadvantage. She's going to have to work on her swim if she wants to maintain that dominance.
The Australian team have been training in Frankfurt as part of their preparation for these 3 stops in Europe on the ITU World Cup Tour. Now, traditionally, this is where Carney starts to make her comeback, albeit this is the furthest down the field she's been in the swim section so far this season. And, of course, it's wet. There's been some slight drizzle out there, which could possibly make the track, or the bike course, that is, a little treacherous. Carol Montgomery still looking for her first finish of the season, suffering from illness. The results are for the swim, 20 minutes, 0.49 seconds for Harrop. Rena Hill just 3 behind, Ukamukel 5 behind. Mitchell, also of Australia, 6 seconds off the pace. The bike course, 5 laps of an 8k circuit. As we've just said, it will be wet and slippy, really quite treacherous. Loretta Harrop takes it alone. We've discussed this many times before, Catherine. It is not really the best tactic. She'll be looking and hoping that at least 2 or 3 cyclists will join her so she can benefit from the drafting.
We have seen in the last 2 races, though, Nick, that athletes have made a break for it and they've stayed in the front, they've kept the pack behind them, and they have managed a podium position. So it remains to be seen whether Loretta can do that today.
Harrop leads, but we're just seeing pictures now of Emma Carney, who's in chase pack 4. 1 minute 40 seconds behind the leaders. She's up there with number 80, who's working well with Emma Carney. This is Carrie Johnson from Norway. Good to see the Scandinavians represented in this world-class competition.
I think the biggest difficulty will be the wind, and probably there is a small hill. Maybe it can make a difference if we have to attack, but I don't think it's a very difficult bike race.
Loretta Harrop still goes alone at the end of lap 1, another 4 to go. And she really is showing a lot of determination, quite aggressive bike riding as well. But we'll move back down the field because everybody will want to know right now whether Emma Carney is moving up, if she's whittling away on that deficit of well over a minute. This is Chase Pack 4, the group that Carney is a part of. They're working well together. There is certainly good communication going on. As you can see, the road's very wet, really possible for a crash with the slightest loss of concentration. Emma Carney really does need to push that group along as Loretta Harrop continues to set as equal a pace as she did in the opening swim section and dominates this competition so far. This is Chase Pack 1. These are the people that can take the lead away from Harrop. Rena Hill, Isabel Mouton is in there. Magali Messmer for Switzerland is also looking strong. They're about 54 seconds, so well within the grasp, well within the reach of Loretta Harrop. Going alone, does not have the advantage of drafting, and does not have the advantage of being carried along by other cyclists. Taking you back a couple of groups, but we're focusing on this pack. This is Chase Pack 3 because this is the group that Emma Carney is hoping to catch. and there are one or two fine cyclists amongst them, including Jenny Rose and Gail Lawrence. Moving forwards into Chase Pack Group 2, headed up by the South African triathlete Kim Carter. Just coming to the end of their first lap, another 4 to go. Remember, 8 kilometres is the circuit length, and you can see the triathletes taking it rather cautiously round some of these tight turns, with the roads wet and really quite slippery. Jenny Rose, Chase Pack 3. Now you can see Emma Carney getting ever closer. The gap between 4 and 3 narrowed all the time. There's Carney making the chase already, some 10 seconds before she joins Chase Group 3. And that will be the first major move that Emma Carney has made in today's competition as part of her challenge to take top position away from Loretta Harrop. Still going strong, still going alone, but Catherine, surely only a matter of time before the more accomplished cyclists catch up this really quite inexperienced young Australian.
I'm not so sure, Nick, because the surface is quite treacherous. If you're in a group, you'll want to be going very carefully. You can see the puddles on the ground here going through the tunnel there. They have to be so very careful, especially when they're in the tunnels going across the white lines, which are incredibly slippery. So I think you might find that a group is going to go a little bit slower than it would normally.
Whilst Loretta Harrop continued her lone journey at the head of the field, the Chase Pack were slowly gaining ground on the leader. Christina Hawk's race came to an abrupt end when she crashed out in the second lap. Lap 3, as Loretta Harrop comes out of the Royal Palace area here in Stockholm. She's still all alone, she still has the lead. The Chase group, well, there's some 1 minute 10 seconds approximately behind her, and already we've got news of one of the potential podium place triathletes. Carol Montgomery has pulled out of her 4th triathlon this season. Montgomery suffering once again with stomach cramps. We wish her a speedy recovery and the best of luck in the next European stop on the World Cup Tour over in Hungary. The Chase group rounding, Emma Carney heading the pack, starting to make her challenge. It's one big group, they've all come together. Groups 2, 3 and 4 all now charging, looking to swallow up Loretta Harrop. And you can see that Emma Carney pulling them along at a very fast pace. She's come back from over 2 minutes before, and Loretta Harrop will know that. She comes from a strong swim background, but her run experience is relatively unknown. One thing that we do know, Catherine, Emma Carney is brimming with confidence and is renowned for swallowing up the lead in that final 10k section.
She did have to work very hard in Gamagori, though, to catch Barb Lindquist, who was over 2 minutes ahead. And I think that's the thing you find with the swimmers. They are so strong from their swimming background. They have the muscle mass, they have the cardiovascular strength, so that really translates well into the bike. They can bike strongly, but being a runner, being as strong a runner as Emma Carney, takes years to get into that kind of shape. So I think Loretta is a triathlete of the future. She's doing very well today, but the stronger runners in this Chase Pack may well have a better chance at the podium.
Something that we've often discussed before, the sport of triathlon is not about one-off disciplines, but merging all three together. You have to be as fine in the 10-kilometre run as you do in the swim and the cycle sections. All credit to this youngster, very bravely, all alone, charging, looking for her first ITU World Cup Tour victory. Loretta Harrop is one of a new breed of Australian athletes brought into the sport with the hope of winning medals at the Sydney Olympics. Her lead had been eaten away, but she was still proving she could go it alone on the bike. Loretta Harrop, 38 seconds ahead of the Chase group, the 5th and final lap, and so far she is looking incredibly confident. But these are all the triathletes who have the skill and experience to threaten that lead. Emma Carney, Gail Lawrence, amongst many of the big guns in this Chase group, who are slowly but surely getting closer to Loretta Harrop. Rena Hill seems to be looking very confident. Also, Gail Lawrence finding time, looks like, to chat to Emma Carney, explaining that one or two of the other athletes are perhaps in the second Chase group. Delamere is there for France, and also Erika Molnar for the Hungarians that have also come to today's triathlon competition as a very strong team in a similar shape and form to the French. They've worked very well, they've communicated throughout, and the end result has been that the leader's time has been chipped away, but this will be decided on the final 10-kilometre run. Well, Catherine, we see that once again there is no problem in the wet of cyclists going alone. Drafting is not essential, And this is the second, perhaps the third time that we've seen this tactic played on the tour, and played successfully.
I think it's really important for the psychology of triathlon here to see that you can break away and get a few meters or a few minutes ahead of the pack. And also, in terms of the transition, it's really important to come in on your own, because then you're not surrounded by other athletes. There's no bumping and jostling in the transition, and you start the run off by yourself. You get a few minutes of breathing space. So I think it is changing the nature of triathlon a bit.
Well, Emma Carney has moved to the front of the chase pack, putting herself in prime position for a quick transition. That is off with the cycle shoes, on with the running shoes to start coming back at Loretta Harrop. Jill Newman is now leading the second chase group, some 2 minutes plus behind Emma Carney's group. Further back, 2 minutes 13 on Loretta Harrop, with a lot of work still to do. In difficult wet and windy conditions, the chase group had avoided serious harm. They had made up some time on Loretta, but still lay 31 seconds behind. Loretta Harrop continues to dominate. She's won the swim section. She's now going to take top honours on the bike. And this has been a very courageous performance. She will have won a lot of fans, turned a lot of heads here in Stockholm. Now, the race is by no means over. A 10-kilometre run section still to go. But this has still been a sparkling performance for the 21-year-old Australian. Off the bike at the key point, into the transition area for the last time. Smoothly taking the feet out of the pedals. It's a process that's practiced and practiced many times. And as our expert in the box, Catherine Davis, has pointed out earlier in this broadcast, the lack of congestion in the transition area will make this process a little easier. The time, 1 hour, 2 minutes and 6 seconds so far. She's heading for a sub-2 hour performance, but the 10K can often take its toll. The conditions are perfect, and there is no question that Loretta Harrop has upset the form book thus far. The number is pulled over the waist, and the running shoes put on a little confusion into which way she needs to go now. And perhaps that's a sign that the fatigue is starting to settle in. 10 kilometres to go, and it's all over. The rest of the pack are now coming into the transition area. Sophie Delamere of France is bringing them in. 28-year-olds who went well in the other European stop on the tour so far this season in Monaco, where Delamere went into 11th position. Emma Carney is there, Gail Lawrence is there, Nikki Andronicus is also with them. And so all of the big guns that could potentially threaten Rena Hill just escapes quickly. Emma Carney just behind her. And you can see that just now stepping out of the transition is Christina Hock. They're looking very close, and one feels that this young Australian's lead will only last for a few moments, with the big guns looking very aggressive, and she's almost looking tired already, Catherine.
I think she really expended a lot of energy on that bike trying to stay ahead of the pack. And you see she's not moving very fast. She doesn't have the smooth cadence of a pure runner like Emma Carney. She's got a real swimmer's build. It's going to take a few years before she becomes one of the top runners as well.
Well, we can confirm that Loretta Harrop is the fastest after swim and bike sections. 1 hour 22 minutes 55 seconds. Messmer is the second fastest. Hilga Holt for New Zealand lies third. Harrop is already well away, and these are the chase group. Delamere is being caught by Erica Molnar. Rena Hill is also making this first breakaway. But in this first breakaway, we do not see Emma Carney going with them. And this is something that we have not seen before. Carney does not seem to be blazing the trail and looking to catch up Loretta Harrop. One thing we can confirm is that Molnar, who is just stride for stride with Rena Hill of Australia, do not seem to be in awe of Emma Carney. Let's take a look at this run course. 5 laps of 2 kilometres with 1 or 2 tight turns at the end of each lap. A relatively flat course through the old town of Stockholm. Now already they've caught them up. Rena Hill and Erica Molnar, who made that early breakaway, have got the better of Loretta Harrop, who was looking tired from the moment she stepped out of the transition area. And Rena Hill and Molnar now take it away, the 1, 2 and 3. Australia, Hungary, Australia. But Loretta Harrop seems to have had her best of this competition and now is tiring. Will be lucky to stay up there in the top positions. Striding very smoothly indeed, the Hungarian is Erica Molnar. She's just 21 years of age, won her national championships a week ago and now takes up the running. Emma Carney is still in the chase. She's in the group, pushing hard, but doesn't seem to have the speed or the determination of Molnar. Erica Molnar of Hungary had surprised everyone with the speed in which she had taken the lead. None more than Emma Carney, who had pulled herself back to third place, but still seemed to be struggling. Midway through lap 2, and Erika Molnar is now pulling ahead of Rena Hill. She's ahead by some 10 seconds, but running in a very smooth and effortless style. There's Nikki Andronicus. She finds herself down in 7th position, coming into the second of 5 laps. Erika Molnar looking very comfortable indeed. A very smooth, fluid run-up, and just lapping one of the stragglers, one of the Danish triathletes there, really not up to the speed. There is Loretta Harrop now. Sadly, she now finds herself in 12th position. She'll be remembered for that courageous swim, and in particular her bike section, that has given just a little too much in the early part of today's event, and now will be struggling to stay in the top 15. There, just loosening off the arms. This is an incredibly confident and fluid run from the Hungarian, Catherine.
I think that the Hungarians haven't really been noticed in world competition in the last few years, but in Europe, in the junior and youth championships, they've traditionally taken the 1, 2 and 3 spots. There's a very, very strong Hungarian training group there. And I think we're going to see more of them in the future, especially with the Olympic status, because they will get funding from their national government.
Emma Carney rounds the turn. She's in 3rd position. One has to say she looks a little tired. She's 19 seconds behind. Just behind her in 4th position is Mika Seuss. 4th, we guesstimate around about 23 seconds off the pace. In the 3rd lap, Emma Carney, who appeared to be struggling in the run, shocked everyone by pulling out due to illness. This left the door wide open for the Hungarian. Erika Molnar, who had only made 2 appearances in ITU races prior to Stockholm, was to surge through and was heading for the first European victory on the women's tour. Rena Hill had come out hard in the run. With Emma out, must have hoped that this would have been her day. Erika Molnar looks to record Hungary's first ever ITU World Cup victory. She came close in Monaco, where she was 3rd, but this has been a sparkling performance. Really flying in this last 10-kilometre run section. Molnar seems to be digging in deep, almost with a sprint finish here. Just 21 years of age, she's had her fair share of success in the world junior ranks. She won the national title of Hungary a week ago, but who would have known that Erika Molnar would claim round 5? A superb performance, a brilliant run, and Molnar has taken top position here in Stockholm. 2 hours, 1 minute, 57 seconds. Just behind Erika Molnar, she tried to go with her in that early breakaway out of the transition area. Didn't have the speed of the Hungarian. Rena Hill equals her position in the opening round of the tour in Ishigaki, where she was the runner-up. A fine performance from Rena. Surely she thought, with Carney out of the chase, that victory was hers today. No one expected Erika Molnar to run 10 kilometres as quick as she has, but congratulations to the Australian. Rena Hill takes runner-up position in round 5 of the tour. 2 hours, 2 minutes and 33 seconds. The Europeans continue to come back at the Australians here in Stockholm. Mika Seuss, in her first ever ITU World Cup competition, delighted to claim 3rd place. Showing the strength and depth of the Hungarian squad in her first ITU appearance, Nora Edusone takes 4th place.
I'm reasonably happy with 2nd. I've had 2 disastrous races the last couple, but maybe I'm coming back to form again. Now I've been working back on my swimming.
It's really great. It's the first race. Really exciting, and I had a very good run, so it was just great.
A superb day for the Europeans. 4 in the top 5, with Molnar claiming her first victory. Rena Hill, the only Aussie in top position, and superb performance for the Belgium triathlete Mika Seuss. Just a few moments away from the start of the men's competition, the fluo green cap worn by Chris McCormack, Garg wearing the red. Watch out for Hamish Carter in the white. This is a huge field for the men's event. 110 competitors, of which 16 out of the world's top 20 elite triathletes are about to dive into the water. Catherine, if nothing else, this will be a scintillating competition, albeit a little bumpy out there with so many people pushing, jockeying for top position.
You can see that they actually had to line up in 2 separate lines. Those ranked in the top 50 got to stand on the first line, and those who weren't, well, they had to stand behind, so that's a bit of a disadvantage. And all the more incentive to get out there and get some World Cup points. And we do have a real incentive here today. Simon Lessing is back on the World Cup Tour. He's the reigning world champion. He's got 3 World Championship titles to his name, so it'll be good to see how he measures up with the rest of the guys out here.
Early race leader in the swim section, Benjamin Sanson of France. Perhaps a little extra motivation seeing the Europeans go so well in the women's event. As for the men, the swim course is exactly the same as that of the women's event. 2 laps of that 750-metre course. They don't get out the water until the end. No difficult beaches or climbs to be made here in Stockholm. Now, the French are in first and second position. Sanson with teammate Stéphane Poulat are swimming stroke for stroke and really starting to set a very fast pace indeed. As we'd said earlier in this broadcast, the conditions are near perfect, albeit the water looking a little choppy. But Catherine, it is important for the swimmers to get clear water, especially with so many competitors in the race.
Well, with 110 men, it's going to be difficult to get a little bit of clear water to keep your rhythm going. And that is such a problem for the sort of middle of the pack swimmers like Chris McCormack. He said that before, that he gets caught in there with about 50 guys around him. You can see him right there in the bright green cap. He's right in the middle. It's so hard when you're going around the boys. You get elbows in the face. You can't really get any clear water. You're swimming on top of other people's feet, and it's just generally very uncomfortable. So all the luck is with the guys who are a little bit stronger and can get out there in the clear water.
One feels there's a little bit of extra pressure here today, with Simon Lessing making his first appearance on the ITU World Cup scene. Let's see if the Australians feel any pressure. They will certainly enjoy taking the scalp of the defending world champion.
There's 16 of the world's top 20 racing this week, and it's my first time I've ever raced Simon Lessing, which is exciting for me. He's a guy I've watched many times win world championships, and I got the opportunity to train with him a few weeks ago in the south of France. And you know, it's going to be tough. The swim, as usual, is my weakness, and it's something I've been working on the last few weeks to keep up with these guys. And if I'm there, I give myself a chance of winning. So, yeah.
With these 3 ITU races being held in Europe at the same time, there's so many good people here. Like the guys' field is like over 100, and it's just going to be such a close race, or such a tough race to win, that over the years it's definitely got tougher to go and win a race and to do well.
Going towards the end of the first lap, they're heading for a sub 10 minutes, which is very fast indeed. The two French swimmers are blazing the trail. Craig Walton is also in there. Walton, who's been placed twice in the top 10 so far this season, and is pretty sharp on the bike as well as in the water. Well, rounding the buoy, the end of lap 1. Not too far behind, we see in the black cap there is Brad Bevan. Right about 4 seconds off the pace, going well. The white cap of Hamish Carter is also seen, around about 8 seconds off the pace. And we look now for the fluo green cap, just at the right of your screens, bobbing in and out of the water as he strokes up to the buoy. That's McCormack, 27 seconds behind, so quite a good swim for him. But Catherine, we often talk about the times really not being that close to the 1500-metre swimmers in swim competition, but of course these turns making the whole course that much slower, that much more difficult.
I think it's true for each of the 3 disciplines, because if you do compare the times, they're a good couple minutes off world record times, but you can just see going around the buoy, they're practically at a standstill when they have to go around, and they're getting bashed and bumped. And so if you've got these guys, put them in a pool, put them on a velodrome, or put them on a running track, their overall times will be very close to the world's best.
Well, a shame for the athletes. They're unable to see the beautiful scenery of this Stockholm Triathlon, as the conditions, both weather and water temperature, near perfect.
Because this sport, it has everything. And I think the City Hall is going to be turned from politics to triathlon during the Olympics, if we are fortunate enough to host it in 2004. I think it's necessary to really draw the big crowds, that you have a venue that is friendly to the crowds watching it. And here we have the perfect venue in Stockholm for the triathlons.
In the second lap, Australian Craig Walton battled it out with Sanson and Lessing, but managed to take the lead. Meanwhile, Tour leader Chris McCormack was some 40 seconds behind the leaders. Craig Walton comes to the end of the 1.5 kilometre swim section, under 19 minutes. A very strong and positive finish. Just behind him are the French triathletes also in there. Stéphane Poulat. Brad Bevan has also done well to get amongst the top performers, but it is Walton who will go into the transition area first. And a good round of applause from the crowd. There in the black cap is Brad Bevan. He'll be delighted because he looks to be getting out of the water before the defending world champion Simon Lessing, remember, making his debut here on the ITU World Cup Tour circuit. Poulat is there, but heading for the bike first is Craig Walton. He's an established swimmer, very strong and confident on the bike also, as the weather conditions seem to have improved somewhat from the women's race earlier on this morning. where the roads were wet and slippery. We'll look and see how that develops in the men's 40-kilometre bike section. McCormack is way down. 19:45 is his time, and McCormack leaves himself a lot of work to do. Both Lessing and Brad Bevan are ahead of him and out of the water before the Tour leader. Craig Walton is first away. Craig Atkinson for Australia is second. The Europeans are still in the chase with Sanson third. Brad Bevan is fourth. And then Lessing is also out of transition. There's Lessing now, moving through. The world champion making his debut on the Tour, but Chris McCormack on the right of your screens, really not looking as sharp, not as dynamic as he showed in events gone by. And of course McCormack, who has been so consistent throughout the Tour so far this season, first, second and third in 3 out of 4 competitions. Most impressive track record, work to do on the bike. Walton is the first away. Atkinson will be going with him. He'll not be working alone. And this will be a very exciting bike section with the big guns, including Brad Bevan and Simon Lessing, now giving chase to these two. Craig Walton, the fastest in the swim section, 19 minutes 10 seconds. Atkinson just behind, Poulat, Sanson, and Brad Bevan, the 5th man out of the swim. Right into the early stages of lap 1, and Craig Walton has already drawn away from Craig Atkinson. He's been on the podium just once before in ITU World Cup history, or recent history that is. Sydney last year, he was the runner-up, 1:47.34 his time there. Has been in the top 10 twice on the Tour so far this year, still searching for his first podium positioning. And already starts to take it easy on these tight turns amidst the streets of Stockholm, Sweden. Just behind him, 10, maybe 12 seconds is Atkinson. Then the chase group headed up by Brad Bevan, pushing very hard. Bevan, the winner of the last round of the ITU Tour in Gamagori, Japan. Shane Reed is also in there, another consistent triathlete on the Tour so far this season. And then the big guns, including Simon Lessing, just behind, so all poised to strike. Let's take a look at the bike course, 5 laps, quite tight and technical, 8 kilometres for each lap. And it's the tight turns, in some spots dry, in others wet, where the bike riders will need to be a little careful. Craig Walton takes it along in the lead at lap 1. The chase group just behind him includes Bevan, Lessing, Shane Reed and Hamish Carter. They've got just 30 seconds to make up, and that's well within the capability of this quality field tucked in behind the Australian leader.
It's interesting to note how the guys are all rotating. They're taking their turn at the front. They're doing it quite quickly, the way professional cyclists do. A lot of these men do train with professional cyclists. They've had to do that to gain the skills to be able to race really well in these drafting races. And I think they're working well. They know Craig Walton's up there. They know he's a good cyclist, and he's also a very good runner. When he has his day, he can run a 32-33 after the 40K bike. So they must know he's up there gaining time on then, and they have to work to the fullest advantage of the drafting to try and catch up.
Well, one of the few climbs in this Stockholm course, and Walton continues to push ahead. Very similar to Loretta Harrop. Brad Bevan pulls the chase pack along. This man has won the World Cup Tour title 4 times throughout his career. He's now 29 years of age from Queensland in Australia.
It's going to be a very, very fast swim. Hopefully I can be up there and, get in the bike. And Lessing's obviously going to be the guy to watch in the run. Greg Welsh is also a fast runner as well. And I suppose I just see if I've got the legs. I've been training a little bit different this time, sort of building up for later in the season for Worlds and that, doing longer stuff. So maybe I haven't got the speed there this weekend, but I think it's going to come down to a gutsy run, and that's what it usually is.
Back with the live action, and Craig Walton, reaching the end of lap 2, has extended his lead to just over a minute from the chase group. Walton is pushing very hard in a similar style to Loretta Harrop, who dominated the early part of the women's competition. But the news is you can see the drops, the raindrops now starting to fall on our cameras, and the bike course is starting to get damp and wet once again, which could cause a lot of trouble, Catherine.
It certainly could when you're traveling in a big group. When you have someone crash in the middle of the group, it could take down 3 or 4 or even more riders behind you. So I think that's going to be foremost in these guys' minds. They want to stay at the front of their group. It means working a bit harder, but it also means avoiding a potential crash.
Now, many of the athletes have questioned the size of the field in today's competition, over 100 men. And as you can see, this chase group is very tightly bunched indeed. And there's one down! Already the trouble's beginning as the weather changes. Javier Rosas of Mexico getting caught on the top bend. The bike whipped from underneath him, taking 2, maybe 3 other cyclists with him. And this will be the problem that will develop throughout this competition. Raindrops are falling, and this is the end result.
You can see from the replay there that he was pedaling through that corner. Now that is something he really shouldn't have been doing in these conditions. He had his weight on the inside pedal. He also may have clipped his pedal on the ground going around the curve. When you, in conditions like that, and in any conditions, weight on the outside pedal.
Chase Group 2, 1 minute 39 seconds behind. Craig Walton all alone and looking to stay out of trouble. Craig Walton was powering through the bike section, proving that it was quite possible to gain significant advantage by going it alone. Coming to the end of the 4th lap, he was 1 minute 55 seconds ahead of the race favourites. Chase packs 1 and 2 had joined together, but the pace was slackening with such a large group. Back live, and Craig Walton going into the 5th and final lap. His advantage has been extended, well, considerably since coming out of the water as the leader of this competition, 1 minute 55 seconds. And Walton, in a similar style to Greg Bennett on the wet streets of Monaco some 3 or 4 weeks ago, has gone all alone and is dominating. The chase group is headed up by Hamish Carter, a lot of the big guns in there. But really, now, Walton, very confident indeed, seems to have chosen the right tactic in a similar shape, style and fashion to Bennett in Monte Carlo. He's had no trouble from the riders who've been very close to each other, at times precariously close.
I wonder if these riders in the big pack know how far they are behind Craig Walton, because if they do, they should be worried. Walton has quite a pedigree to his name. He was 2nd in the World Junior Championships in '95. Last year he won the American professional race. He was ahead of all the top Americans, so he really is someone to watch out for. I think these athletes may not be aware he's so far ahead, or they're just thinking of 2nd place.
Well, there's also 10 kilometres of running still to come, but it's also very difficult to get a clear view unless you're at the front of the pack, as the bends are quite tight. It's quite a flat course, as we said earlier. But again, some athletes going left side, right side of the bollards, and there's one hitting it straight on. Another problem for the Mexican triathlon team. Jose Luis Zepeda has come right over the front of the bike, and Catherine, that was an awful skid along the tarmac.
That's one of the problems, Nick, with riding in the back of the pack. You can see that some riders went to the left, some to the right, and by the time he looked up, the bollard was right there in front of them. He seems to have left a lot of his skin on the road there. That's what we call road rash in triathlon. He's going to be uncomfortable for a few weeks to come now.
Back to the leader, Craig Walton. He's averaging around about 43 kilometres per hour for each lap and seems to be staying consistent and also pretty determined to stay ahead. The chase group, they still are unable to get back at him, and perhaps they are unaware, as Catherine Davis in the box here had pointed out, just how fast and how motivated Craig Walton is, albeit there's a lot of 10K specialists in that chase pack, including Brad Bevan, the 4 times World Cup champion, and Simon Lessing, the defending world champion.
Some of these riders do really have a strong running credit to their career. Simon Lessing, for example, is capable of running a 29-minute 10K on the track. His personal best is 29:02, and he's also one of those supremely talented triathletes who can put in a really, really good run after a bike.
Craig Walton will look for Simon Lessing to come back at him in the run section. There is Lessing looking very comfortable, surely now looking to draw upon those running skills as this chase pack seem unable to catch Walton. Australian Craig Walton had taken a leaf out of Greg Bennett's book by forging ahead in the bike section with a significant lead of nearly 2 minutes. The question that remained to be answered was, could he hold off the advances of the powerhouses that lay behind him in the chase pack, including Great Britain's Simon Lessing. Craig Walton dominating from start to finish of this 40-kilometre bike section. The time will be quite impressive, considering that we've had 2 or 3 athletes down in the wet and slippery conditions, looking to clock a time of around about 53 seconds. And Walton, like Bennett in Monaco, has dominated this competition from start to finish. Left 10 kilometres to run. He knows that there are some extremely fast runners who will start to make their challenge now. But Walton is starting to develop into a fine triathlete. Remember, he's been placed twice in the top 10 so far this season, and Walton will be happy to have stayed out of the trouble. This is his total time that's ticking away on the right of your screens. The bike and swim times added together. At 1 hour 14 minutes, the bike must stand upright, and the transition time must be quick. Looking a little tired, Catherine, or not quite as focused as he would have liked.
It certainly is difficult to be out there alone. Apart from the advantage of having other athletes to work with and draft off of, you have to really focus and concentrate. And without the other athletes to mark the pace, to keep the rhythm going, it is much more difficult to be out there alone.
Well, Craig Walton powers ahead, looking for his first ever ITU World Cup victory. Erika Molnar has picked up her first. It could be Walton who claims his today. The run section is 10 kilometres. It's not the most difficult of courses, but like the bike, some tight twisting turns to mark the end of each of the 5 laps. Each lap is 2 kilometres in distance, taking the runners through the old part of Stockholm, bringing round 5 of the Tour to an end. The chase pack come powering in. All the big guns are there, but we're going to need some exceptional running, with Walton easily 2 minutes plus ahead of these triathletes now coming into transition. The big guns are there. Simon Lessing making his debut on the World Cup Tour so far this season, preparing to defend his World Championship title. Brad Bevan, who's won the World Cup 4 times, is amongst them, as is Hamish Carter. The Tour leader of 1997, Chris McCormack, is there, plus a whole host of young triathletes looking to make their name and make their mark up against some of the great guns competing here today. It really will be a squabble to get in and out of here quickly, a completely different story to that of Craig Walton.
This is a new feature to triathlon, these mass transitions. You didn't really see that before when there wasn't drafting. Here we have at least 30 men coming in together, and they have to be really focused. They have to get their helmet off, put it in the right place, get their shoes on, tighten them up properly, and be careful not to bump into anybody else or to get bumped into. So it is important to be very focused at this part.
Lessing is away, as is Hamish Carter going alongside him. There we see Brad Bevan is also in the chase. Shane Reed is also amongst them. Very fast transition indeed. These guys know that they've got to catch Craig Walton, who really has excelled in the bike section, was very strong in the swim, and now has 10 kilometres to home. Confirmation of the swim and bike times, 1 hour, 12 minutes 57 for Walton. Johnson of Norway lies second, Welch is third. Craig Walton all alone once again. He's in familiar territory. He did it on the bike, now can he do it in the run? The rain and the wet weather conditions will keep them cool. Simon Lessing has already barged and pushed his way to the front, settling into this familiar pattern, this unorthodox running style that is incredibly effective. Lessing's a very tall athlete. He has a lovely stride pattern and is already starting to stretch out, with Brad Bevan looking to go with the world champion of the past 2 years. Craig Walton had had a fantastic bike section, but the strain of working alone was beginning to show, as his lead was slowly being eaten away by Lessing and Bevan. Simon Lessing had come out of transition pushing hard, but did he have enough left over to take the lead? Craig Walton still has top position, 3 of 5 laps down, but he's just 30 seconds ahead of Simon Lessing, that seems to be eating up the ground in his quest to take his first victory of the season.
We've just had some numbers coming in from our timekeepers, and it seems that on lap 2, Simon Lessing has put in a 5 minute and 23 2-kilometre lap. Now, if you add that up, that's 2 minutes and 41 seconds per 1,000 metres. If he were able to keep that up on a track, he'd be on target for a 27-minute 10K. So taking into consideration all the turns and the corners and everything here, he is really putting in a firing pace. What a time he's going to come up with today.
Lessing is also looking very relaxed and fluid, focusing on taking over from Craig Walton. He's pushing very hard indeed here. 3 times a world champion. This is the most successful male triathlete of all time. He has an amazing win rate to his name, and Craig Walton, well, looks across to his right, only sees that it's a matter of time. He's tiring. It's taking its toll, the hard work in the swim. Brad Bevan is chasing in 3rd position, some 40 seconds behind the leader, but Simon Lessing is comfortably ahead of the winner of the last round of the ITU World Cup Tour in Gamagori, Japan. Hamish Carter is there with him, also Shane Reed going with Bevan. By the end of lap 3, Craig Walton's chances of victory were looking futile, with Simon Lessing now just seconds behind, eager to take the lead. Lap 4, and it seems that Craig Walton has hit the barrier, the wall as it's often known, because the legs are no longer delivering the speed and the power that are required, and that enables Simon Lessing to power by and take the lead, and also look quite comfortable to claim the 5th round of the ITU World Cup Tour and send a chilling message to the rest of the world, as the 3 times world champion is looking strong once again for the World Championships of 1997, to be held in Perth, Australia later this year. Just behind, Shane Reed is third. Hamish Carter and Brad Bevan all battling it out, but look to be battling it out for the minor places now. As top position surely now will go to Simon Lessing, pushing ever further ahead. There's Chris McCormack, has got work to do, and Dimitri Garg is having an equally explosive run as Simon Lessing. He was way down after the bike. Brad Bevan had once again come shoulder to shoulder with Hamish Carter in the final lap. However, he pulled away, but it was too late to catch Great Britain's Simon Lessing. Simon Lessing had not had it easy here in Stockholm, but it takes supreme fitness and talent to be a triple world champion, and he had proved beyond doubt that he is the man to beat in the sport of triathlon. Simon Lessing now appreciates the applause from the Swedish crowd here. Sadly, Craig Walton has dropped right out of the competition some 30 seconds back, and Lessing, in an amazing start to his World Championship defence, has come here with an emphatic victory in Stockholm. Down after both swim and bike, sheer brilliance in the run, and the triple world champion claims his first ITU World Cup win of the season in 1 hour 48 minutes 40 seconds. Sheer brilliance from Simon Lessing, tactical skill from start to finish. The winner of the last round in Gamagori, Brad Bevan, has to settle for runner-up position, 1 hour 48 minutes 59. Hamish Carter claims his third podium of the season, maintaining his consistency throughout the tour, 1 hour 49 minutes and 6 seconds. Shane Reed equals his performance in Gamagori, taking fourth position.
It was very difficult for me today because this is the first time I've raced any of these guys this year, so I really did not know what to expect. But altogether it was a good race and good organisation, and I think once again the top athletes were there, so that was good.
I had a decent race. I did a lot of work on the bike, and no one else. There was hardly any guys working, but it's good to make Simon vomit at the end of a race. It makes me feel good.
Just throughout the whole run I was trying to stay as focused as I could and relaxed and run as fast as I could, and I ran well. I was pretty happy with it, but I've got 2 places to improve and then I'll be very happy.
Confirmation of the men's results from round 5. Simon Lessing is back and back with a vengeance. Bevan the runner-up, Carter third, Shane Reed fourth, and Greg Welch in 5th spot. Standings after 5 rounds. McCormack still has top position. Carter and Garg get closer. Shane Reed moves up into 4th. Miles Stewart, still injured, down in 5th place. The women's standings still dominated by Emma Carney, but Rena Hill draws ever closer. Erika Molnar starts to find consistency. Andronicus 4th. Nia Wata drops to 5th. A great day for European triathletes as the Australian domination is finally halted. The next round of the ITU World Cup Tour is in Tezovaras in Hungary. For more information on the ITU Triathlon World Cup, visit our website, www.triathlon.org.